Rushing here.
I got live.
And we're live.
Okay, hello fans. Today we had a little problem starting up, and I had to do two separate windows. YouTube, for some reason, didn't give us a live chat. That may fix itself. It may not fix itself. I want to apologize right off the bat for no live chat. If you don't have a live chat, or if you can't find us, I want to apologize because you. Oops, and. That's about it. Hello,
Okay,
guys.
we got a chat. We do have a chat now.
And
Okay.
I'm checking from my end too as well here, guys. Stand by.
Yep, I'm gonna go in there and say hello. Nobody's in here yet though, because nobody got a notification, I imagine, because of the crap this morning that we've been going through here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here we go. Hello, gents. Hello, gents. Oops, twice. I only put it in once, but okay. All right, so we got that chat opened up.
Okay. Did it show up on my page window?
Yes, on your home page, it showed up finally, and I've got the chat open under the live broadcast in the channel.
Okay. Yeah. Everything
So
seems
that's
to be
working.
showing up a little late. It says 0 viewers, and
yeah, I see it now too.
Yeah, and it's showing up fine here.
Mute that. I think, John, you might want to mute the live broadcast that is on Joe's channel. Just hit the little X on the speaker there, mute it. Hey, there's Mgtow. Yay!
Okay, I'm going to give Mgtow, if I do have a chat here, I'm going to give Mgtow the moderation duties for
the chat.
For the chat. Nope, I got to give Zeta moderation here.
Okay.
Yeah. And are you getting any feedback from me?
No, all the sounds okay. And
is my mic quality okay there, guys?
Yeah, your mic sounds fine.
Good.
Okay. Yeah, I just got my blue mic turned. Okay, so I'm checking the control room here, Joe. Yeah, still nothing there. Anytime you're ready.
Okay, I shared controls with you.
Access. Yeah, I've got access now to the control. Excellent. We're good to go.
Okay, we're good to go. In case that everybody knows, last week we had the link kind of slip out and we lost control, and I wanted to apologize to everybody. That was my fault. The ensuing argument was my fault, and I should have moderated it better. And sometimes these things happen, and that's just it. So today we have Zeta, we have Warhorse, and we have John Galton. Hello, John. How are you today?
How are you doing?
Good, good. We were talking a little bit about the PUA earlier, and the feminization of Mgtow. A lot of Mgtows are concerned about that. A lot of Mgtows want to have this feminization occur, but for some of us older guys, it gets a little irritating. The PUA thing gets a little irritating because not a lot of us date and not a lot of us do those things. We're over that in our life. How do you feel about those things?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, John.
I think, as a first or a starter, I'd say that I don't have a lot of problem with pickup artists or the younger Mgtow that engage in that, because I kind of see it as a rite of passage. It's something that we have, I believe, we've all gone through. And for the younger guys out there, they're going to go through it. For the older guys that are chatting here right now, it's unlikely that we had the strategies available to us in our younger years. But for the younger guys out there, they've got a new community of men who are discussing the effects of relationships on their lives and on their personal development. So they've got an opportunity to get some information that is actually going to help them.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it is, and it is rather important that us older guys speak out, because we are, I guess, what you would call the war-hardened veterans of having made all the mistakes, because we didn't have this type of information. We didn't have anybody giving us any type of input to keep us safe from ourselves, basically, because
Absolutely.
you know, so that makes us veterans, and when most of us in this age group, and we're all, you know, in that 50 plus age group, or 50 whatever, so we're talking from experience. You know, we can't be accused of being virgins. I mean, unless you know, come on, you know. So realistically speaking, we have been through the ringer, and this is a whole new paradigm of what's out there being exposed to the younger guys now. They have the information, so the ball is actually in their park now. You know, when they do get the information.
Exactly, Warhorse, and I just wanted to add too as well. You know, the whole thing about Mgtow, you know, in the past 3 years, Mgtow really was just a purging of all that information that we have had. You know, having gone through the cycles and seeing all these things develop in the course of 50 years that feminism, you know, came about. But that's what it is. It was a purging of information and, you know, and transparency. And I know for myself, too many aha moments. Holy jeez, all the dots started connecting. So you know, this is what I call the phenomenon in Mgtow. Back to you guys.
Yeah, we when we were growing up, we were told, you know, get a job, get married, have a happy family life, that white picket fence, and all those things, the beautiful house, and then somewhere during the process, they pulled the rug from underneath their feet, and then we had to figure it out. We were in a new world that we were very unaccustomed to, and I think men are getting it now. I think a lot of young men are getting it now, but still there's that little hesitancy, and I'll ignore the risk and try this thing out, and I'll ignore those things that they're saying and try these things out. But some of us know real life terms that risk encompasses your whole life at a certain point, and it's not worth it. Like Nico says, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. And
Right.
but we get the new PUA thing, and it's a little queer to me, and it's a little odd. It tells, you know, men how to pick up women, but they always leave out that risk factor, don't they?
Well, they think they can win the game. They actually think they're smart enough to win at this game, and there is no winner. You know, not as a man. And they honestly believe that they're that slick and that smart to be able to play all these women. And they got another thing coming. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I was reading up. Nico did that on what do they call that? Forcing or taking over the situation, and and I was thinking back about some of my dating events and trying to pull some of those things. You got to understand, you're dealing with a person across from you, and that person has intentions, and she has expectations, and she has these dreams, these false dreams about that. You know, most of these women in our life, back in our age, you remember those chests that women used to keep on the bottom of their bed, or hope chests?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, women's lives were all about that moment, getting married, and they still have those things. That's all they dream about from the time they buy that Barbie, from the time they, you know, that's all media pushes at them, from the Barbie dolls to whatever toy they get in school. They're taught how to get married, and a man was going to take care of her, but that's not true. And when you're sitting across from that woman, that's her expectations of you. Them are false expectations now. Even if a man does choose to go down that path, you are still dealing with a person, a real live person, and we can't subhumanize them, but we can say they just don't understand now.
Yeah.
I'd like to introduce a word that seems that everyone is subject to in their younger years, and the word is illusion.
Illusion, yeah.
Yeah.
We're all under the illusion of the beliefs that have been fed to us, and when you put the rubber on the road, you start to discover those aha moments that, well, wait a minute, that illusion does not apply in my circumstances, and I'm stuck with reality. And I think that that's a point that a lot of these younger PUAs and younger guys need to come to terms with. We like to call it the red pill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
well, are they fooling themselves? Is that the thing?
I think in a lot of cases they are.
Right.
I listened to the chat that you guys had last week, and it seemed to me that the whole idea of the illusion wasn't really getting through in the conversation.
Yeah, that's true. Uh, I don't know how to explain it. I've often thought about that, about what happens in the human mind when you're hearing something that you're rejecting. And we all see this in our life. You say something to someone and they totally reject it and they just go on with what they're doing, and you say, oh, well, that's not going to turn out well. They have to be very aware nowadays of the consequences of having a child. The consequences of getting married can simply be alimony for the rest of your life. And they don't believe that's true. And we hear this from Messenger. Unless you've gone through it, that's the aha moment. Where do people have to come to that harsh red pill moment before they get it? I see some of the kids getting it.
Well,
But
some people do. You think with all the information that we've put out there for the years now, and they would say instead of grabbing the kettle on top of the hot fire, instead of grabbing it, how about you just touch it lightly with your finger, to make sure it's hot or cool enough to touch. And these guys are grabbing that kettle full force on, even though they've been told this is going to burn you, it's going to scald you, it's going to rip the skin off your hand, and yet they still grab it instead of being smart about it. And if you're going to play around, play these games, and I understand about being horny, I really do, or I did, let's put it that way. I no longer have that need, but I was, out of my head. If I didn't have a piece of ass at all times, I was looking for it. So I understand that, but you got to touch that pot, if you will, with a very gentle fingertip, to kind of feel the heat that's coming off. And I don't think that they're doing that. A lot of them aren't. Some of them are. Some of them are.
Some of them are, yeah. We can look at a few really good examples of young men. We have one in a lot here, Mass Mgtow, and he seems to get it. We see TFM, which is a younger guy. We see if Dark Knight was a younger guy, and they got it. And excuse me, they know what can happen. I think there's a difference between being raised by a single baby mama and being raised in that family where the illusion is provided to you. If you're raised by a single baby mama, then you see it right away. You see. I don't have a father around. I don't have. I know I need a father. There's that longing for that fatherly thing. When you're raised by a single baby mama, you see how she acts 100%. But then again, a lot of these guys get enmeshed at that point with their mothers and start agreeing with their mothers on this is okay. This is an okay way of living. Just go out there and get yourself one of me. That's what she's saying to him. But the guys I'm worried about are those guys and we talk about it a whole lot, the traditional backgrounds that promote the illusion still. They don't get it. Basically the churches, the traditionalists and the civil religion people don't get it. They're still trying to push that marriage thing. They don't see it. Them are the enemies. We hear a lot like don't call people enemies, but yeah, we do have enemies of logic, don't we?
Oh, of course. They're very predominant. Everybody's got a narrative to push, for their own agenda, I think. And well, of course, religion does that, so they need the family unit to project their however you want to call it, their own morality, and what's entailed in it. Come on, look, it goes back to leave it to Beaver type thing,
Yeah.
where we watch these episodes. This is what you want in life. Later on, it got a little bit more hip with shows like Bewitched, even, But there was always the eventuality of a child involved, the husband working. What did she do? She flew around on a broomstick, fucking things up all day long. So, I mean, this was, we weren't aware of it, and we weren't really watching out for the telltale signs because, again, we didn't know back then. But we thought this was the perfect life, the nice house, the good-looking wife, a kid, and going on from there. You're driving a nice car, and this was all a fantasy. But we grew up with that, and in a way, I think that maybe the younger crowd, they didn't pay attention to what have you, the King of Queens, Everybody Loves Raymond, and how these men were treated in these types of TV shows was very telling of what was to come. And I think they didn't pay attention any better than we did back when we were young, watching Bewitched and Leave It to Beaver and shows of that nature.
Just to jump in for a second, I'd just like to touch on a point that Traversable made in one of his videos regarding desire.
Desire, yes.
And I thought that was a phenomenal video, and I'm going to link it to this conversation just in terms of that illusion ultimately gets interpreted into desire. And all those shows that we watched, the Leave It to Beaver and the Bewitched and all of that shit, those were illusions that were being delivered to feed our desire of how we would like to see ourselves. Now, we were conditioned under those circumstances, but when you look at Raymond and all this other shit, we see the contradiction, but the younger crowd who is still searching for desire, they're willing to accept that identity.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Because that's the desire that's being delivered to them by this sort of manufactured social illusion.
Yeah, I often hear the word. That's when we get into these microaggressions or mini aggressions with people that don't believe in our way. They say, "How can I resist that biology, that desire?" And they often use the word desire, and I say, well, desire is a mechanicism that kicks in, and there's reasons why that kicks in. We all desire something in life, whether it be a red sports car or or the certain type of woman and everything, but that's fully controllable desire, and that right there, that idea that it's not fully controllable is the question to me on some men. They can't control their desire. They can't control that impulse.
Well, let me challenge, if I may, briefly, Traversable, what you're talking about. You use the term microaggression.
Yes.
Desire potentially could be filled by micro successes.
Micro successes, yeah. They see them as successes, and that's very true because we do get, your toys define you, your house defines you, your image on life defines us, and that's the image we want to project as being successful. But
well, it's even biological. Your hormones,
right?
If you feel good about what you're experiencing, then those hormones actually support the desire that you're experiencing. So
yes.
Even your body is working against you.
We crave human touch and closeness, and of course sexual expression is the ultimate of human touch that makes you feel safe, it makes you feel loved, it makes you feel wanted, it makes you excited. So many things are going on at one time that it's hard to explain. That's a very euphoric high that you get from that human touch, if you will. So by saying, all right, I'm not going to get involved with this type of thing, as a young person especially, and let's say you were brought up by some crazy mother, that rarely touched you or hugged you or did anything like that, you crave it even more when you get to the point of being sexually active, because that is the ultimate expression of human touch.
Yeah. What it boils down to is, and I do several videos, and I said maybe I should do a couple more videos on it, and I think Mgtow should do a couple more videos on it, is that chemical reactions we get being around a female. How you feel. It's like when you score on a test high, an A, you get an immediate feeling of elation, and that's how fast these chemicals work in our systems. They make you happy. I'm joyful at that moment. Desire, when you reach one of those pinnacles where you achieved something, where you can physically see it, you get that same chemical reaction in your body, and it is just simply a chemical. It's I can't remember exactly which one it is, or can tell you which one that goes off. It's just a
Dopamine, isn't it?
Yeah, dopamine and endorphin. One of the there's good ones, there's bad ones, and we don't get taught this in school, that we're going to have these overwhelming urges, and some of them are tantamount to heroin. They're very addicting. When you have sex for your first time, we all remember that. You sit back and it's that, holy smokes.
Yeah, I want more of that.
I want as much of that as I can get. But it is an addiction. You get addicted to them things, and that's a very scary thought, because in today's environment, you mix an addiction, and I think that's what PUAs are feeling. They're feeling that high, they're feeling that addiction, they're feeling those chemicals coursing through their bodies, and they do get addicted to it, and they want more, and they will do anything, even lie to themselves and try to persuade others to verify the lie in themselves, that there's more there. There's something metaphysical. There's something spiritual about it. There's nothing spiritual about it. There's nothing metaphysical about it. There is no heart muscle, and there is no that's love, and it's just chemicals going through our bodies. And as soon as you understand that as a man, you start to understand yourself in a red pill sense, don't we?
Yeah, I think what the problem is when you're younger, the hormones and this is why I think a lot of younger guys, they tend to jump around from woman to woman to get that that initial thrill again, over and over again. And of course, the more you jump around, the more you're apt to hook up with a crazy bitch, that doesn't. I know that also, but all these things kind of factor in under one umbrella. That's why it's so hard to move away from that mindset. I think by the time you hit your late 20s and early 30s, it's much easier controlled than in your teen years and earlier 20s.
Yeah, it's a multifaceted attack on youth, isn't it?
It really is, and the women know it. I mean, the women know it. They get hit on by just about everything with a swinging dick on it during high school, especially if they're hell, they don't even have to be good looking, And this is what gives them this feeling of superiority and entitlement just for being alive, And guys are looking at it as they just want a piece of ass, not somebody that they're going to worship, but they do provide worshiping behavior to the women. And this is what builds the narcissist, well, not only that, but of course their childhood and everything else and society. But, that's one of the main causes of why we have this problem.
Hey guys, just from the chat room there, James Denton, sorry I had just stepped out. Is that what you guys are talking about? He's got a couple interesting points here in chat, if I can read it off.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, okay, so James Denton said, last time we touched upon how Mgtow can at the same time be a place for all men and have a higher quality and more masculine individuals than it currently has. It would be interesting to have a discussion dedicated to perhaps a more concrete discussion of what Mgtow should represent. Is a gateway, an information repository for males. And then he says the next, we have to admit that a lot of individuals in Mgtow are not going their own way, but individuals that have been kicked out from other paths, those individuals are not real Mgtow in my belief. They are the ones that are usually the sellouts, the ones that are after any other path becomes open to them. They leave Mgtow.
I would agree with a lot of that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And
Can I introduce? Can I introduce just one little mem?
sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I think at some point we should talk about the difference between going your own way and getting your own way.
Yeah.
Well, that's a huge spectrum right there, John. Seriously, and different applications. Yeah, that's a separate hangout, if not a mini-part series on just talking about that.
Well, I think that issue
Yeah.
has a tendency to sort of excavate a lot of bullshit.
Yeah.
And
right. That's a good subject. Yeah, we can go that way. We can kind of.
It's going archaeological. Yeah.
Yeah. We've seen that with a few of the. Well, we see that all the time. And let's. I hate to use the example because I always get a whole group of people attacking me, and I don't want to attack the group. But we get with the gay scene on here. They come around Mgtow. It doesn't. Mgtow doesn't really work for them, so they want to, okay, here's me as a gay man, and I want you to accept me, and I want you to do this, and I want you to do that, and what they're really saying is, I want to change you into gay, and that's not going to happen. And what they want is they want to get their own way.
Yeah.
Well, they make that the highlight of what they're in it for, the gay portion of it, which basically, look, if you want to go your own way, you are a man, go your own way. Why bring up the fact that you're gay? It has nothing to do with the subject matter.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with it. We get that with the effeminate males too. The effeminate males, just by proxy, by life, that genetic lottery, they're a little bit effeminate, and it doesn't really bother me, but it seems to bother them a whole lot, and they want to make that the issue all the time.
Right.
They're shopping in the market. These are people that wear their sexuality on their sleeve.
Yeah.
And they place it there because they're shopping. And getting back to what Warhorse was saying, the sort of profound effect of coupling is the physical tuning and attachment to another person. And I think all of that sort of bleeds into youth, pickup artists.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all still validating yourself through that conquest, that desire, that stimulation you receive. You're still validating your entire existence, or their entire existence, on that.
Absolutely.
Well, it's ego and misplaced machismo.
Yeah.
Look at how many women I can pick up because I got a Ferrari, or whatever. I think, it's really misplaced. And to a lot of us, it almost looks humorous or pathetic, actually.
It looks pathetic.
And hi, Shining. I see you just got in there.
Hey, Shining. We've got another question as well from HD Failure on the chat panel. Were we finished with that one? That point? Bring up HD's point here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, question for the panel. Since Mgtow refused to be interviewed by the BBC, should we join the conversation with the Honey Badgers and talk about Mgtow?
Oh, yeah, I brought that up.
I don't feel a need to talk to them. I don't know what possible input they could have. I mean, it's mostly women.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind talking to a self-described Mgtow MRA / MRM humanist and everything else, Dr. Rando Mercam, Mike. He's funny as hell, but he is a man, and he does look at it from the male perspective, even though he does hang out with the Honey Badgers. But talking to the girls of that little organization or club or whatever you want to call it, to me doesn't make any sense. It just has no validity in the conversation from from my point of view, as a man going my own way. It has no input. They can speculate. They can speculate on it all they want, for all I care, and that doesn't change anything for me. But talking to them and discussing it or debating it, as they put it, to me is of no value whatsoever. Or I think to any other man, we don't. What's to debate?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
That's well, the question that I ask in consideration of who I exchange with is, where is the benefit for me?
Right.
Right.
And,
there is no benefit.
Well, beyond trying to sound selfish or anything else, I don't think it is. Because I struggle and strive to keep myself on the right side or the wrong side of what's presented as an illusion. And I see no benefit, for the most part, in discussion with women generally. I'll listen to them, and I'll give some consideration to their position, but I'm not negotiating my own reality with them.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a two-part argument that we have to get through two parts of that before we even get to the central argument. Would be, first, I'm a man, and I can't explain to them what it is being a man. And then the second, more complex part would be, I'm a Mgtow, so I reject a lot of what other men do. And then I'd have to explain that to them. And then we'd have to go from there to a third part so they know, where I'm coming from, because the first thing that they're going to say is, why don't you guys date? Why don't you guys do this? Why don't you guys do that?
And then, then again, who's going to be the representative here, Joe? I mean, we all look at this from a different point of view. We are going our own way, which means that all of us have a different path that we're on, and we perceive the things that are in our path to be, this is what is good for me. Like John said, I look at what is the benefit to me of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So whichever one of us talks to her, or all of us, we're all going to confuse them even further, because we're all such diverse people here. And see, this is why I don't see any advantage to talking to them about it, because it almost feels like we need to convince them of this, and they want a clear-cut guideline to look at of, yes, this is what it is, and there is no such thing. So why even bother talking? Why the debate? That's what gets me.
Well, in simple terms, the reason that I'm even in this discussion is because I don't speak for Traversable. I don't speak for Warhorse. I don't speak for Zeta X. I'm here to listen. I'm here to share my experience, and I don't feel that I'm in a position where I have a right to represent other people that are quite capable of speaking for themselves.
Exactly.
So my Mgtow is personal.
Yeah.
And somebody's echoing.
Yeah. I think,
is that me? I'll mute my mic here, guys.
Okay. Yeah, when you look at Mgtow, you see that, and I did a video on this. We have 4 parts to Mgtow. We have PUA, we have the regular Mgtows, we have the going Galt. And I'm glad John's around here today, because we very rarely hear from the going Galt end of Mgtow. And then we have the red pill philosophers in Mgtow. So that stop sign I like to, that sign that we use, and the Mgtow in the middle.
And we also have the monks of Mgtow too as well. I mean, we're so diverse. We're a full spectrum of men going on here, Joe.
Yeah,
sure.
How would they bring in, if they bring in a Barbarossa, which generally dates, how would they get a good feel from what Mgtows want? Or are they bringing a Stardust that used to not date and considering it, and he represents that red pill sector? A guy like me or John Galt, and John, I'm assuming that you like the going Galt way of Mgtow.
I use that handle for a specific reason, and the reason that I use the handle is because the most popular connection to it is, who is John Galt?
Yeah.
And I think when you ask that question, if you can't identify who John Galt is, ultimately John Galt is you.
Yeah.
So for me, the question is, who are you?
Who are you? Yeah, it's very vast here, and how could they possibly cover all of Mgtow? They'd have to have at least 5 guys with 5 different point of view if they did that, and then they would feel that they need to have 5 different points of view on. It would be a really good conversation. Maybe a single Karen, or she has her point of view, and then the other 4 guys have their points of views, the Mgtows, and then that would be a discussion that could be had and winnable or lost, and it wouldn't even be what you just explain your point of view on this.
No,
Hello, everyone.
hello, Eric.
They've always been linked to Mgtow somehow, the honey badgers, because number 1 Cavan Strawn, number 2 Diana Davison,
Yeah.
and number 3 a lot of their subscribers, a lot of their participants are from the Mgtow community. They've always been linked with the Mgtow, and yeah, obviously this came up because they were asking for Mgtow to come in. Was it Thursday or yesterday? I don't know. We're gonna have to mute Zeta, I'm afraid. Sorry, Zeta.
I don't. Oh, okay.
Oh, I got muted?
Yeah, you did. I think you got an echo. Yep, you do.
No problem. I'll stay on mute here. I'm just, like I said, I'm just monitoring everything and in between there.
But the problem is, they're much more popular than the Mgtow guys. I mean, Calvin Strawn, she's 5 times more popular than our most subscribed Mgtow channel, and Diana Davison, she's twice as popular. The fact is, we're still quite a gynocentric society, aren't we? Whether we like it or not.
Yeah, they get the gay Mgtow, they get the purple pill MRA, they get the MRAs, they get that whole. We have always said around Mgtow that we're not inclusive of everybody. To be a Mgtow, you have to be a Mgtow. We're not going to join, all these other, groups, the atheist groups and everything, and say that's Mgtow too, because that isn't Mgtow. So our popularity doesn't reflect, their popularity doesn't reflect true popularity in a sense of we are just focusing on one group here.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Their popularity shouldn't be an indication of how popular Mgtow should be. Definitely not, and I think this is something that people need to understand. I mean, I'm just thinking about James Denton's question. It's a fantastic question. I wonder who this James Denton guy is, because you just don't come along and say, well, how do we define Mgtow? What are the particular groups of Mgtow? And it just all go into that.
I think too that Mgtow, to achieve it properly, in your own way, takes a hell of a lot more work and self-control than it does to be an MRA, let's say, or an MRM, or get into the talking points of all this. This is actual looking into yourself and working on yourself more so than outwardly. And of course, a Mgtow is more than just a Mgtow, if you will, under that label by itself. We all have other interests. We all can be either religious or atheist, or we have other identifiers. It isn't just that we go under Mgtow only, or you actually wouldn't be a Mgtow if you only focused on that one thing. You have to have outside interests that further your own life, whatever they may be, and they're all going to be different.
That's interesting. I mean, what would remove someone from being a Mgtow? I mean, what would nullify someone's Mgtowness? I mean, I think that's the center of James's question there. What would remove someone from being Mgtow?
Mgtow, it's sort of like what you say, a positive view of the lifetime bachelor. So before it's been like a bad view, like, oh, he's not getting married, he's not doing his duty to society and stuff. And now it's like Mgtow makes it a bit more positive, I guess.
Yeah, well, that doesn't answer the question.
Yeah, I think it's the first rule. What's the first rule in Mgtow? We don't get married, right?
Yeah, so can a woman be Mgtow? course she can't be Mgtow.
No,
That's
she,
obvious.
No,
Okay,
she can be a woman going her own way.
she can't be a Mgtow.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean, if she's not married and she doesn't cohabitate
yeah.
and she doesn't belong to the you know, Hell's Angels motorcycle club or what have you.
What's wrong with the
Where
Hells Angels?
I didn't say anything was wrong with them. But understand, I'm a Florida boy, so I have no love. But
Okay,
anyway,
fair enough.
the thing is, if you belong to that type of organization or that what do you call it, marriage, the institution, belonging to an institution, you can't go your own way. Right. So of course, if a woman doesn't belong to any type of institution or subscribe to one, she can go her own way, certainly. But
yeah,
she can't be a man going her own way.
yeah. Well, that's what I mean.
It's the first word, you know, men going their own way, and
Okay,
marriage
well,
precludes us.
let's put it out there. Can a PUA be a Mgtow?
No, because he's involving in a ritual, isn't he? The ritual
Yes.
of marriage.
It's the institution of chasing pussy and getting involved with it and putting that in front of its own needs.
Mm. Okay, well then comes the question. Well, how do we address this PUA influence that's sneaking into Mgtow? I think this is something that I think we all agreed that it's coming in slightly.
Call out the bullshit the minute you see it.
Call out the bullshit. Yeah, it's
I think a
devastating to
lot
Mgtow.
I have a simple response to any pickup artist. Where's the benefit?
Well, those are
I've
talking about male
I've
mother.
read this Rollo Tomasi book, you know, that Nico recommends, The Rational Male. And there are a lot of useful principles in there that can be applied to all sorts of social interactions, basically. Like, for example, the person who needs the other the least has the most power in the relationship. That holds true for all relationships, basically. So, I mean, it's good to know those things, I guess.
Yeah, when you're a 20, 22, 23-year-old man, it's good to know these things. But you know, in
But for
Mgtow,
example, if you're negotiating something, like a contract or whatever, you can use that too.
yeah, if you're coming around Mgtow, then you present yourself with a problem. Are you involving the ritual of traditional dating into marriage, or are you excluding? And I think if they would say that, if they would say, I am excluding all that ritual of marriage, and I'm dating for physical needs of sex alone, then they've answered the question.
I'm gonna put it out there
basically
that
with
epic
Mgtow,
PUA.
they reject this idea of this perfect love, or what you say, like a lifetime commitment and the perfect partner, or the one, or like that will sort of save you. Like this, I heard something that it was constructed during the Industrial Revolution. Before, marriage used to be just like for you know, make peace between clans and like, yeah, basically keep order in the society. So it wasn't for love.
It was romanticism. The era of romanticism. We often talk about it as being so destructive, but aren't they still buying into that era of romanticism?
Yeah, I guess a lot of people are. I mean, blue pillars are, I guess. But to me, it seems like Mgtow, they reject also that idea, you know, that
Yeah.
of love. So because otherwise you wouldn't be getting married if you didn't believe in that idea, I think. Like,
I had a date with a woman who actually approached me and asked me out for a coffee, and I spent some time with her, and I had an aha moment. We were driving along, and this was after a lengthy divorce, and you know, the usual fucking being pulverized in the courts. And I realized at the moment, in the moment, I turned to her and I said, you know, you're making me fall in love with myself again.
Very good.
She didn't like that.
I bet.
But what? So I mean, I come back to this. I come back to the issue of love personally. As a you know, on a lot of levels, personal acceptance, personal awareness, personal understanding. I think the best partner that any man could ever have is himself.
Yes, I
Yeah,
agree. I
it's
mean,
true.
I made a video about it. Like, so, I mean, we've talked a lot about male mother need. It's like Stardust and Barbarossa and all these other guys talk about it, but you can remove it if you start to love yourself, basically. And if and also self-love is it's very important. Like,
I don't hear the term male mother need, I think, the way everyone else does. I think the
mm,
men that are sitting in this chat room,
mm,
for all intents and purposes, in the discussion of masculinity and maleness, these are the male mothers.
yeah,
And that's what men need. So, in terms of mothering, uh, it's an aesthetic.
mm,
If you want to define who you are as a male, you need to be around men.
mm,
And, if it's uncomfortable for a man to consider himself to be in the position of mothering and the attributes that go along with that, like nurturing masculinity, nurturing maleness, supporting it, educating it, promoting it, that's male mothering.
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah, at a certain point, the job should go to the man. We hear this all the time in here. We hear, after the boy removes himself from the tit and gets off that being enmeshed to his mother, where does he go from there? He goes to the father. The father takes him out into the forest and teaches him how to hunt, teaches him how to build things, teaches him how to cut down trees, teaches him how to be a man. And that's the natural progression of of manliness, of maleness, and
and
then you learn
Nico,
how to deal with things in life. But a lot of those
yeah,
boys get stuck halfway between that. Uh,
and
we
Nico,
see
he
that with
made a
the
video,
Well, look at the weak role models that boys have nowadays. The men are, I hate to say it, but they're not very masculine. They're not very manly.
no,
They
yeah,
get their asses run around by women at every stop. Go walk through a mall and see how many handbags are being carried. You know, by the men, not the women.
oh yeah,
And how many guys are sitting there staring at the walls holding packages while this bitch is off spending every penny he made. These are the male role models anymore. There's nobody that's willing to say, you know what, fuck PC shit. This is the way it really is, or should be, and this is what I've been through, and I'm here to try to teach you this. But they reject that too, to a degree, because they're just not used to seeing it in society anymore. And more men need to step up to that plate of being a man and a role model.
yeah,
yeah. I mean, Nico,
Sorry.
he made a
You got
video
my
about
vote.
yeah,
his grandfather, and he talked about how his grandfather went to war, and he said in the war that they formed the strongest bonds of, male sort of relation and caring, like in war, and also like the way they lived. Like, I guess in poor places it's easier for it to happen because everyone can't afford to live, alone. So if you live together with other men, I guess it's natural that it becomes more like a deeper friendship, I guess. I don't know.
Well, if you go back to what Warhorse said about the intimacy of proximity, you're tuning your hormones. When you're around men, you're doing the same thing. You're tuning
Mm,
yourself to the environment of masculinity.
mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
I feel quite comfortable personally when I'm in a group of men and we're talking about guy things, and we're cutting it up, we're talking naturally, normally. There are no women around to correct or to feel insulted or anything like that. I feel very comfortable in the company of men, real men. Uh, Now, some of these wimpy guys that, see a woman walking past, 100 feet away and watch your language. There's a
Oh
woman,
yeah,
Oh, come on, man.
Fuck
Now I
you.
don't feel
yeah,
comfortable anymore
yeah.
being
That's what
around
we
this
talk
guy.
about here.
This isn't a man. Fuck her. Fuck you. And if you're offended, good. That's your problem. Piss off. I don't like that crybaby bullshit anymore. But I do feel comfortable around guys that can talk plain, like we do in here. When there's something on somebody's mind, you say it, and there's no need for getting all nasty or rude about it, but to be normal about it, the way that men act with each other. This is something I feel perfectly comfortable with.
Hmm. Yeah, it's much more easier and straight just to speak your mind and say things as it is. Just it's a lot different from women. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that what they do around here? You know, if we can draw a picture of a bunch of men sitting around the garage, drinking a few beers, taking a motorcycle apart, doing what men do, and then you always get one guy in the crowd that's like, why don't I bring my girlfriend around? Why don't we
Yeah.
have girls around here? And then we all look at him like, what, are you fucking nuts? You're breaking the rule. You know, this is the He-Man Woman Haters Club here. We don't bring, you know, I hate to use that reference from the Little Rascals, but you know, this is what we got going, and I like it. I like when I'm in the garage with a bunch of men, and we're doing something, or we're sitting around drinking beers and just flipping it around. You know, I don't want. And what happens in those situations, and it's the same thing as we can use the example. It's the same thing that happens in here. As soon as we do bring a woman around, everything goes to hell. Everything starts to get tapered down, and that's what we see with the MRA. Everything starts getting watch our language, watch how we talk about them.
Well, you know, I remember days of old when we used to sit around the campfire, just a bunch of us guys, you know, talking and all kinds of drinking going on and what have you. And the minute some woman walks around, there's an uncomfortable silence. You know, it almost kills the conversation. And then, of course, if she's somebody's wife or old lady, you all of a sudden feel like you don't really want to disrespect the man. So you start to police your talk, and it ruins it. It really does, until she leaves, and then it goes right back into the feeling loose again. You're almost allowed to be yourself again once that woman has left. It's really sad, because if you look at it objectively from that point of view, you all of a sudden realize how much influence they have over us as men, or how much we self-control ourselves. You know, and this is something I think
tolerance.
Right.
Tolerance.
Yeah, any benefits that would have came from that conversation or that interaction with men is now derailed, and then we have to get back to those benefits. And that's what we talk about male spaces. Anytime men get together, there's a benefit, and I like what John said. I need to have a benefit on any interactions I have with any people. There needs to be. Otherwise, I exclude those people from my life, and that goes back to the original question: who we let into Mgtow, and who we let into our life, and who we exclude from this thing. Because if there isn't no benefit to that, and we're not just the men sitting around talking about manly things, and they're at the end of these conversations, at the end of these male spaces, I've got a real good idea where I'm going. We can include these women, and the PUAs, they want to include these women. So that kind of answers our question, doesn't it?
I think what you're talking about is a territorial issue.
Yeah.
And I think that when you occupy a territory, you have the freedom and the choice to invite anyone you want into that territory, but you also have the right not to have tolerance imposed. It's your fucking territory, and if you invite in a guest, regardless of whether it's a pickup artist, a woman, or a fucking feminist, or whatever it may be, I think you have every right to impose the understanding and the common law of your territory.
Right. Yeah, that answer that. Okay, so we've answered John Denton's question, and we've.
But I feel like, you know, as young men grow up, you know, in this society, there's like a bunch of these politically correct filters is sort of programmed in their brain, and it sort of stops them from being like that with each other, like men, and just say it like it is. At least for me, I mean, I live in Sweden, But Sweden is extremely politically correct, and I found that you know, you have a lot of those filters, and it's, for me, it's been a process of sort of breaking them down and just learning to speak, you know, like I want to speak. But it's really freeing for me, at least. It has been very nice. Like, it feels good to say what you think, and not just think so much about those filters. Yeah, I guess.
I'd just like to suggest, for anyone who's paying attention, there's been a migration in this conversation. And interestingly, that migration is a direct result of focusing in on positive aspects of the conversation, adding to it, and moving forward. And that process in this particular group is particularly male and masculine. So what we're all doing in this conversation is we're plugging into a directional energy that is going to and is taking us to places, you know, of self-discovery, really, as men. And it happens in every conversation, you know, whatever you, and this is the problem with political correctness,
Right.
is the positive attributes in a conversation with political correctness. Well, we can't talk about that, so we're going to direct the language so that the final destination is what we're going to impose. Fuck them.
Fuck 'em. Yeah, yeah. We see that all the time with people trying to derail our conversations and derail, and that's purposeful. Anytime someone tries to derail the conversation, because we're getting to a point, we're slowly walking to a point, and I think they know that point will be logical and sensible and reasonable. If a bunch of men get together, we get to a point that's logical, sensible, and reasonable. You see that with Dr. Smith's book, Men Being Reasonable. She also, you know, these men are just, and she jumps to the end on that proposal that she made, and she says, no, this is just men being reasonable and having a reasonable reaction to the climate out there. And when we get to social justice warriors and that, they're just trying to derail because they don't want us getting to these points, because these points are so positive and so they're so informational for men. I
don't understand why people are so worried about us, and why they feel that we have any type of effect on their life. We're going our own way. We're talking amongst ourselves, and I get people on my videos, you know, women that come in there, and a lot of times I won't respond, but when I do, it's like, what are you doing here? What do you want? You know, you have nothing to say here, so piss off. Whoop, am I on?
You're on.
Oh, okay. I know I lost it before. Somehow I got shut down here, but yeah, you know, we get into these conversations with each other, and all of a sudden, other people are threatened by it.
Fuck 'em. Fuck 'em.
Yeah, of course. But you gotta wonder about their mentality, and of course, I don't think like that.
Well,
you know,
when you stop and think about it, the underlying message that Helen Smith was getting at in her book about the marriage strike is that men are actually taking the time and the opportunity and the freedom to give some consideration to their own personal benefit. And this is, you know, and this is why the conversation is subject to political correctness, because the underlying tone is, who the fuck is going to benefit from, you know, from this language? Well, and it always comes back to benefit, and you have a right in your life to reach out for your own personal benefit.
Of course you do, but other people want to benefit also, and by you benefiting for yourself, you're taking away their possible benefit, which doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and the difference is, we're sitting here as a group, okay, and you know, our conversation is directing the energy of collaboration, okay. So the benefit is becoming, it is offering something group wide to all of us, and I suspect that everyone is benefiting from this conversation. But for some dipshit to come in and say, well, wait a minute, you guys aren't allowed to benefit as a group. Benefit is my right. Well, fuck you and fuck off.
Yeah, because I don't like what you're doing because I'm not getting anything out of it. I think it's their way of looking at it.
Well, one of the attractors to this group, I think, is that the benefit is becoming recognizable, definable. It's tangible. You can almost fucking you can feel it.
Right, and you got to take what you want out of it. You know,
Exactly.
you don't have to take all of it. You can take what you want away from this entire philosophy that we have, from various different peoples with different outlooks on everything. You can take what works for you, and for some reason that scares people. This is what gets me with the whole social justice or speech police crowd and thought police crowd, and they can all kiss my ass, and I do what I want, but it's amusing to see them on the internet, especially like in the comments section. The type of videos they make that are direct attacks on our philosophy, if you will, and they always pick and choose the craziest of the bunch. That's an easy target to go against, and then they make their point that they're so offended by us doing our thing of doing nothing more than supporting each other, talking to each other in a way that we feel comfortable with. And I think that's all we're doing basically here.
Well, one of the things that they're trying to do is they're trying to derail, the process of benefit. And I keep coming back to that word benefit because every fucking person walking on this fucking planet has a right to pursue personal benefit. And these social justice warriors, they're taking that theme and they're throwing it back in I mean, this is, one of the underlying themes of feminism is, oh, gee, men have benefited for, eons, and we haven't benefited to equal proportions. So that argument fundamentally revolves around benefit. And what? I have a philosophy about benefit. If you don't know what the fuck benefits you, and if you can't pursue your own fucking benefit, fuck off. Don't take mine.
Yeah, and I'd still like to know what privileges I had in life that I was so given by just being a man. I still haven't seen it yet, and I'm 58 years old. My God, did I miss something all these years? So they don't look at it from the other point of view at all, and it goes back to manipulating, using men, and then discarding them whenever they feel like it. So there's no quick answer to this.
There's a presumption that men have this undetermined source of wealth.
Yeah.
And that there's an entitlement to it.
Yeah, the coupons that we were supposed to get, it's like we received coupons in the mails for free cars and free motorcycles and free bikes and free work.
The patriarchy coupons.
Patriarchy coupons.
I get them every month, and I buy a new car, and then I buy a new bike, and I have people come over here, women, to paint my house and do my yard. Yeah, sure, right.
And after we've done shopping, then we'll be escorted back to our concentration camp where we can ride around in buggies and fucking white vans and whoever that feminist was from Australia or something that put out.
That's the delusion, isn't it? The delusion they're living under is that they don't perceive the ideas of disposability and male utility as something that's an entitlement that they have used. They don't see it as they see that as something we should just do and forget about, and that itself is an entitlement. It's the same entitlement, and it's the same hypocrisy that they're trying to say.
Yeah, I don't put up with it anymore. I mean,
Well, you know, when your life experience tells you that you're reduced to a function, to you know, almost like appliance grade function, and you buy into that by seeking validation for that function.
Yeah.
You know, they've this permeates through society. I mean, men
Yeah.
believe this down to their soul,
Right,
and
it's the object-subject dichotomy, but they've got it all reversed. We're the object, and that's what we're saying. We're the object, and we're being acted on, and we're being told what we're utility and all that, and it permeates down through, like you said, down through society, and they believe that's just the way it is, and then it reflects back on our group with the, we need women around, we need to. No, we're doing this so we can benefit from our lives, so we can have our lives fulfilled in a male masculine way, and without these parasites. Let's just call them parasites because that's what they are on our lives, and they don't understand that they're acting like parasites, and they're acting on that object dichotomy that they believe we're the utility. Our language makes so much sense, and it's so easy, the language we use around here. It's so
I've
easy
been
to see.
thinking like, men are conditioned through their upbringing to be treated as human doings, and they get a much harsher upbringing than girls, and they are viewed as human beings.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of like, so then they obviously they go looking for, I guess, that sense of love or value, and they seek that in a relationship, with a woman. But I think the solution is for men to start to become human beings again, and then they need to start valuing themselves and loving themselves, and go through. They need to sort of deprogram, away that disposability function, for what you say, like conditioning.
hey guys, I'm gonna head out. I've got some things to do, and it's a beautiful day here to ride. So
Okay.
I do need to take care of this, and I'd love to stay and talk some more. But it's been great talking to you, gentlemen, and we'll meet up again.
Warhorse, thanks for your time.
Warhorse, we'll see you later, man. Enjoy the ride.
See you. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we've broken through a lot of the questions here. You see any other questions in the group out there?
I'm just having a look here. There's a bit of a lull here in the chat room. I'll just pose a question now. Anybody in the chat room have any questions about what we're talking about here, if you've been following?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll just wait until they post something.
So this what we started with here was the femininity, the effeminate Mgtow, the PUA Mgtow, and we've worked out through all that, and we've explained ourselves quite well why we don't like this in Mgtow. We have these. I don't think they're feelings. We just have certain rules we adhere to around here, because we want to keep it a male space.
And the reason for that, and the reason for that, Joe, if I can add, is it's the quality of information that we're sharing, and most of it is male centric. It's and it's something that every guy out there can relate to. And like you said earlier, once you throw a woman into the mixer, everything, the dynamic changes completely. Now, for some of us, and this is what I've entertained before, and I think we've discussed this as well, Joe. This what we have here at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard. Our throwdown is a male space, okay, and it has been since the very beginning. We haven't had any women on, and it's going to stay that way, okay. And I think those of us that are involved are going to keep it as such, okay. Yeah. But if there is no burning desire, I found, of them really wanting to talk to us, other than what than some of the honey badgers putting out that request, which I posted as one of my videos, right? I mean, if they want to entertain, if they really want to talk to us, I don't mind setting up another hangout and having some kind of a debate that they requested. But it's not going to be in this hangout that we're having.
No, and it's not going to be a debate.
We're established. We've been established pretty much since March, okay? And
I just want to ask, who's going to moderate masculinity?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Fuck
It's not going to
that.
be a debate because automatically there'll be those automatic filters we have to put ourselves
Well,
through.
that's just it, exactly. And it's and you know what we're doing here is unfiltered, pretty much, right? You know, I mean, we can even be hijacked, like what happened last week.
Right.
It wasn't unfiltered, you know, and you know we dealt with it as we came along. Of course, it's
I
keeping
I
ourselves
have some
updated. Yep, sorry.
idea for a discussion topic. So I'm thinking like so if you're blue pill, you have a sort of set of values, right, that you pursue, like hard work and family and you know, raising kids and all. And if you decide to go Mgtow, you you sort of lose those values. So what replacement values should you have in that case? I mean, thoughts on that? Like freedom, obviously, but what else should be there? You know, sort of like a meaning or, you know, objective. Like, because I think a lot of men feel like a bit lost and they don't know like what their values are anymore if they go Mgtow. So, what values? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I kind of have the feeling that it is somewhat responsibility falls to the experienced to listen and ask questions of the inexperienced. And I think the question always comes down to the same thing. How is your activity, how is your effort, how is your structure benefiting yourself, your life, and your future?
Yeah, there's a certain uh, with the older MGTOWs, there's a certain durability in their life. We don't see the drama going on. You can get a real sense of mentorship from the guys that have been through it, and that's what we provide. A certain sense of mentorship, like I always give this. You know, I've walked down those paths in life. I know which ones are muddy and which ones are not. When I see a bunch of kids running down that path, I can say, "Hey, don't go down that one because that one's muddy. It's not going to be an easy trip." If they go down it, well, that's fine. You know, they'll probably come out an hour and a half later full of mud and going, "Yep, you were right about that one," but they didn't really need to. You know, they didn't really need to. I'm not lying to these guys when I tell them these things, but there's always this
But
perception that I'm
Mgtow, it seems to me, it doesn't have any core values except maybe, you know, self-interest and freedom, basically, those two. Should there be more, you think, or
core
should
values.
every man, you know, values sort of like, yeah, should there be more? Should men
Should
make,
we all be left-handed?
I don't know.
Yeah. When we speak about these core values of and we often see them as traditionalism. Traditional males have a lot of core values that are really harmful to themselves. Our core values around MGTOW would be what's good for yourself. Look at for the first time in history ever, men could look at themselves and say, what would just be good for me to do in life? What's good for me to follow? What path is good for me to follow in life? What philosophy is good for me to follow in life? And that in itself is a core value that you should, but we're restricted of doing that. Bachelors are shamed for being bachelors and being, you know, if you live with a guy, all of a sudden you're called gay. You know, stuff like that is useful to the society. So instead of having a bunch of guys doing their own thing and working together as a group, you have Burgess individualism. And you have instead of maybe one house, you have 6 houses, and that's beneficial to the society, but it's not good for the male. It's not good for the being. Uh, what we try to promote around here is a durable lifestyle that can endure to your elder years, and it give you the freedom to do what you want to do, to not experience all these little letdowns in life and all these the things that are going to drag you down to having health problems, mental health problems, all sorts of garbage going on in your life, and you can cut the strings on those real easy in Mgtow. I will say there's a certain amount of there's a certain amount of when you get in here, you wake up by yourself every day. You're going out into this world, and at this point in Mgtow, you're not going to find a lot of Mgtow brothers in your area. You'll have to deal with some amount of traditionalism and some amount of, but you'll be able to sort those guys at this point. Who's beneficial to you? Who's not beneficial to you? These guys can't come around no more. The only guys that come around my life are the guys that fulfill that fulfill some need and have some general sense of individualism.
But do you feel like Mgtow should have a vision, sort of a better world, a new world? Or is it just each individual man's sort of life journey, or what you would say?
No, you include people in your groups. It's not individualism, because through your whole life, you're going to need groups around you. This thing works the way it does just because it is that way, and we are in a community. But who you include in your group is the question. If I include a toxic person in my group, what do you think is going to happen to my group? It's going to disintegrate. And if I include a toxic woman, or if I all of a sudden change into that, my group all of a sudden becomes a group of me and her, that's not a group at all. That's just you being a Burgess individual and saying fuck you to the rest of the group. It becomes a very how are you supposed to win in that situation? So when we're speaking about these core issues, I guess you have a long process in Mgtow, and it takes a couple of years. How long did it take you, John, in Mgtow to really kind of grab a hold of okay, this is the core of it? And
I have a bit of a heretical philosophy, personal philosophy, Joe, and if I was to define, I'll define Mgtow from my perspective.
Okay.
As a personal discipline. As far as I'm concerned, every man who walks the planet is a Mgtow. From age 0 to whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I qualify that. And the way in which I qualify it is, are you aware of being a Mgtow, and to what extent are you aware of your own right to benefit? And benefit ultimately leads towards personal fulfillment.
Right.
So I look at every man as a Mgtow. It doesn't matter whether he's a feminist, a pickup artist. I view these all as potential shades of my own character. I've been there. I've done that. So I set myself up as, I call myself John Galt. I don't reference myself frequently as a Mgtow, but I attach myself to the Mgtow message because I think ultimately the message is overcome the illusion, become self-aware, point yourself in the direction of fulfillment, and on the way, meter the benefit. Pay attention to the benefit.
Right.
And that gives me a freedom to discuss with anybody, anywhere, anytime. As a Mgtow, I'm not alone. I'm surrounded by a planet of men.
But I don't know if you've watched. I watched Tom Campbell. He made a theory of everything. Basically, he talks about the universe as one big consciousness, and that consciousness is information. Well, he's a physicist, so he has sort of come to a new physics. And in this physics, he talks about that we are sort of individual units of consciousness that are trying to lower our entropy, learn and grow, by pursuing, facing our fears and moving toward a sort of love. So it's sort of like an objective framework for self-growth. I don't know.
Yeah,
I, I
and
yeah.
just to add to what you're saying, to move towards love, I don't think that we have the I don't think we have the unique capacity to actually love another person. I think we're only ever capable of loving ourselves. And
But
transactions with other people, whether it's for sex, whether it's for yeah, for fuck, what do you call it? The human touch thing.
Yeah.
I think ultimately what we're doing is we're feeding ourselves, and I think that as far as coming to love, you have to come to love yourself.
mm, yeah, I mean, they talk in Buddhism about that first you have to love yourself in order to love other people.
Yeah,
Uh,
that
but
radiates out of you too.
I think it's possible if you view, you can have a sort of compassion for women because they don't know maybe what they're doing and that their actions are causing them, misery. So you can
Well,
have
you call
compassion
it
for
compassion, I call it appetite.
apathy.
No,
Yeah.
appetite.
Can you
How?
explain that, John? Appetite? What do you mean by
What's
that?
that?
What do you mean by that, appetite? Can you clarify?
Well, it's an appetite for self-love. Your compassion or your interest in a woman, you
Okay.
cannot experience what she experiences. You
Right.
can only experience what you experience.
Right.
So
Okay.
you have an appetite for that experience.
Gotcha, man. Okay.
But what I mean is like you can love a cat, and you can sort of I don't know, you can have compassion for women and other men and just see like they're just human beings here searching for, some meaning or some point to their existence, and you can feel compassion that way, and that will put your mind, at ease, and you won't feel that much hostility. Like you're doing it mostly for yourself, so you will be more at peace, with the world instead of getting angry at women or getting angry at other men, or it's basically stilling your mind, sort of, through
Well, that's a
compassion.
function of awakening, and that's also a function of introspection that leads up to that awakening. And and I mean, I think you understand as reflections. You've got some time in with meditation and getting your mind trained for that. Okay.
Mm.
And what I've discovered is, as a byproduct, okay, what happens as you keep practicing your awareness. Okay, compassion is something that naturally occurs and happens. And I think that happens when you introspect, you look at yourself. Okay, you'll be able eventually to see the same patterns in others, and that's where the compassion grows from. Just
Yeah,
throw
we
that at
see
you.
a lot. We see a lot in here where we are forced sort of to become apologists for people, and that's what I see about what Reflections just said. I'm I'm being asked to become an apologist for females' lack of responsibility, for lack of integrity, and then that is like, and then they go, well, you just got to become more in tune with what you're just angry. You're no, I'm not, but I'm on that other end. I'm putting a bar. I'm putting a slash right here on the empathy I give out towards people, and I'm not going to apologize for their bad behavior at a certain point in Mgtow, and that's a lot of. I think we need to talk about this in Mgtow a little more. Where's that bar where I just say no, I'm not going to become an apologist for you.
Mm.
I think it's placed. That bar is placed wherever it's comfortable for the individual. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I may be willing to tolerate the bullshit from a person because I may be going towards having a more unique understanding of that behavior or that pattern of behavior.
right.
But another person may say, you know what? I don't have time for this shit. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, that's very
We
reasonable to
we
say
got a
that.
question from the chat, um, from Golden Eagle Owl. Uh,
Golden
why do
Eagle.
you guys think that it's so hard for men to find self-love and self-respect? Are the barriers more of the external kind or of the internal kind?
we're talking
That's a
about
good question. I think it's a balance of both. Okay, what I see in that question is the conditioning that we've received. Okay, then we come to Mgtow, and it's all of a sudden it's a free for all, but a free for all in the sense where you can look at yourself, and it's. I think we're still trying to get our sea legs in place because this is too new for us. At a deeper level, right? We're still trying to iron things out. But it's and I think you understand reflections. Practicing quiet time and sitting, right? Where we can settle our minds. We start opening up those channels to awareness. And I'm just basically promoting what you've been doing. Getting into meditation for those that choose to practice. But that's one of the surefire ways to get to that point of awareness, right?
I think,
And that's what's and every man in Mgtow is free to discover their own form. Right, because as I've stated before, this is not for the faint at heart. It's not for every man, but for those men that choose that path, this is part of the arsenal, to really consider, right? To get to that level of awareness where you can discern, between your self-respect and your self-love, right? But again, we're still too clouded, okay, and we're being bombarded left, right, and center, and that's why it's important to, really encourage freedom to get to, so that we can practice these things, right?
Like men, they are programmed, when they grow up, it's like they only get affection when they produce something, an effort. They get good grades, or they do well in a sport or something. It's like they are being treated as though they have no value in themselves. So I think that conditioning, it's a big challenge. And even when you've gone Mgtow, it's sort of like it's still in there. Even if you say, I've read the Mgtow philosophy, I'm going my own way now. The tendency to treat yourself, as a utility, maybe like, so maybe you don't exercise as much or take care of your health, or you still sort of have that subconscious, you work hard so you will get approval or love, or from, even if it's not from a woman, but from an employer or something. I think that's a big hurdle to overcome.
Validation.
Yeah, validation.
How do you self-validate?
I think you do that by loving yourself and treating yourself well, and start to basically. I guess treating yourself well is a way, and there's also, I guess, meditation type things you can do.
Well, I'll give you an example of my own personal selfishness. I'm sitting here in this discussion. I haven't given anybody here any money. There's been no physical exchange of material, but I am validating myself by my participation and by the level of acceptance that I'm receiving. So I become aware of my own validation.
Yeah.
I think that's a great program to work, man. That's
Mgtow is so new too. None of us could imagine, as growing up in school and going through college and everything. I never said to myself that, geez, I'm going to grow up to be a Mgtow. That wasn't in the works. When we're dealing with a hostile community that we perceive as hostile out there, that want to take things from us all the time, they take. Mgtow starts with putting your foot down and saying, this is where it ends. That's when you found a strength in yourself to self-validate yourself, to say, I'm worthy of having things in life. I'm worthy of not being used in life. I'm worthy of not being a slave. I'm worthy of being in a community that I belong, that I can excel in. And it starts with just saying no sometimes, and that's the most important word you can ever hear and ever learn in Mgtow is no. Yeah. No, you can't have that from me no more.
And then I think it's a process for every man to start to value himself more, and start to break down the programming.
Yeah.
So
it all starts with self-worth. saying to yourself, yeah, I am a good, decent, honest human being, and I've given my all in life, and I've done the job that I'm supposed to do. Now, what do I get out of this? And saying to yourself, yeah, what do I get out of this? And start saying no, cutting those strings on people that just want to take, or there is there is a little bit of joy you get in altruism and doing good things, and I can redefine the perspectives in my life where I can go down to the local church, or not even a church, down to the local uh, food bank, and I can help out and get that same joy. I don't have to get that from a woman anymore. I don't have to get that from the family. I don't have to get that from around me, because I've become more self-aware of myself. I'll get that where I want to get it now, and I'll give that where I want to give that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I find a lot of personal validation in breaking down barriers between myself and other people.
Yeah.
And it's a simple act of taking time to listen. I mean, I'm not I'm not being overrun by listening to people, but it's part of my process of self-validation, is being able to listen to another person and allow what they're saying to register in my mind, and maybe take a moment to see it from their perspective if I can, and use that to break down barriers.
That's it.
I think there's this idea of romantic love, and they talk of that as true love. But Buddhism has a different idea. Like, if you really love someone, then no matter what they do, if they choose to be with someone else, then you would be happy for them if you truly love them. But this romantic love, there's an attachment involved. It's not genuine in some sense.
It's fear-based.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like an extension of an addiction too, as well.
Yeah, I mean, the whole concept of romantic love, if you look at it at sort of, where the popular culture sees it originate, which is, the Arthurian legend. I think we forget to remind ourselves that all these fucking guys were mercenaries.
Yeah. And we can't rule out also the neurochemical exchanges that go on in the brain when, from the times that we set eyes, or we used to set eyes on that special one, right? And, the sparkle starts going back and forth. And this is an important part, too, as well, for Mgtows coming in, is to understand, what's going on in your brain at that time. Because I don't know about you guys, but back in the old days, I hadn't a clue. I was, I might as well have been smoking crack,
But it's a strong enough dope that the survival of our species can rest on it. The love dope, if you want to say. So
but going back to what Joe said in his video about desire, it's the appetite of desire, and the process of validating that desire. And the desire can be imposed on you. It can be imposed on you socially through your personal interactions. It can be imposed on you through media. It can be imposed on you institutionally, and it can be imposed on you, in a myriad of ways. So ultimately, the question is, are you in possession of your own desire?
Yeah. I just got a question here from James Dent. Zeta, would you then recommend that every new Mgtow read up on basic neuroscience and evolutionary psychology? My answer to that is if they choose to. But the thing is in Mgtow, we've opened up these things, okay? These, these information channels for every Mgtow who comes in to be able to do so, okay? And, it's... look, it all comes down to the individual as I see it. So whatever you can take, use it and make it a part of yourself and move forward from there. That's what I think the foundation of Mgtow is. We have the freedom to be able to choose what we want to do and how we can go about things. Okay, I think that's a core value right there. Hope that answers that.
You got my vote.
Yeah.
What I was going to say before was that if you're treated as though you have no value except for what you produce as a man, and then you see the only you know, the only place where you're going to feel validated or loved is through a relationship, then of course you're going to seek that. But if you really want to be free from that validation, you need to start loving yourself and treating yourself as a human being. Like, you need to start reversing the earlier disposability, I guess, is what my thoughts are. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so many paths, okay, that can be taken. I mean, this is the beauty of it all, you know. And of course, you know, we open that up in Mgtow. But the thing is it's take Buddhism for example, reflections, and you can verify. In Buddhism alone, you know, there are about 50 plus known forms of meditation, right? And the
Yeah.
reason, you know, and people usually, well, why are there so many? I mean, that's just in Buddhism alone, right? And the reason being is very simply because one particular technique will gravitate to that particular individual. And that's just in the Buddhist fact. I mean, this is not to say, you know, any other facets of you know, of those communities and all that.
From what I've heard, is the
Yeah.
Buddha, he sort of read the person and then he gave sort of an individual type of meditation to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Unless we forget, but this is my view, anything, whenever somebody mentions and talks about Buddhism, one thing I don't I don't look at are the robes or the shaved heads or living on fucking crackers and steam for 6 months. That's such a crock of shit. You know, whenever, and this is what distinguishes Buddhism, for example, from all the other religions, so to speak, is that if you take those goggles off and you put on your scientific lenses, you know, you've got a world of scientific information which is now being tapped into. And so, for me, Buddhism is really the science of the mind.
Yeah, it's true. And from what I've seen, you know, from Tom Campbell, this physicist, he's bringing forth a new physics, basically, and it's sort of like Buddhism fits into that framework, and lots of other things fit into it.
Yeah.
So for me, that's like a modern scientific interpretation. If you want it like really formalized, really rigid. I mean, Buddhism is pretty rigid already, but if you want it in a modern context, you can listen to Tom Campbell's stuff.
And there's a new movement going on too as well. I've had some contacts with some new Zen teachers, right? And they want to do away with these terminologies in the West. You know, drop the Buddhism label. Let's drop the Zen thing and just focus on the core things, right? Because it's, you know, I mean, look at how much of an industry they've made. I mean, there's money to be made, you know, out there. But then again, we've got the advent of the internet, folks, right? And all this information on self-development is just readily available. You know, I mean, there's enough potential for you to be a self-made guru. Okay, you know, but of course, you know, the others are going to say, oh no, you have to seek a teacher, and you know, it's all about that relationship. I don't think, from the Mgtow perspective, that we're more into that teacher relationship. I mean, the symbiosis is going to vary, right? You know, but we're still individuals, and we still need to be able to find our path, okay, of austerity if we so choose to do so. Right?
Yeah, is that the question we're asking now? I just got kind of lost there. I was away for a second. James says, he asked you a question about basic neuroscience. Is it an evolutionary psychology, whether it's recommended that Mgtows do that? There's a real crossover with Buddhism and you know, Confucianism and even some of the newer ideas out there.
You know. Even the 12 steps from AA, and you know, like everything just meets right here in Mgtow, right? Of what's out there, right?
Wherever you find your red pill information, that's where you should start. But I always say that you should really look into the neurosciences too, and really get yourself attuned to the difference between the female brain and the male brain and how they work, and step back on your life, reflect in these things. And no one's going to show you these things in school. You're going to have to do basic, simple observations in your life and how this works. And sometimes it comes from the darndest places, doesn't it? Once you read this stuff, this more complex, you can break it down into simple living facts. Women do think different than us. There's a different brain patterns that go on there. Evolutionary sciences, and here's where we get what we're doing is we're giving examples. You don't have to take these things at face value, but the examples that we give are sometimes just that. They're an example that gives you an idea that you can relate to in your life and apply that to a different example in your life. And then you have matching examples. They do come from many, many, many different spots. Most writers that you'll find on the internet, and most competent writers that aren't batshit crazy like feminist writing, even feminist writing, if you take the negation from it, you're going to learn something. Read everything you can. Try out a lot of different things, and then find out what works for you.
That would be a traversable application.
Yeah, traverse into those things. Yeah, a lot of people accuse me of making those links sometimes, and they're hard to see. Those links are hard to see. If I find something interesting in something, yeah, I could take that and take the positive out of these things. Whether it be Buddhism, Christianity, a book I read, a group that I participated in, or anything, I can always learn from those events. I don't have to just go, oh, that sucked, or this person's an idiot. I can learn from everything.
Well, it's a distillation process. It's like distilling alcohol.
Yeah, it's like I'm taking what I want out of it and using that for my benefit.
Exactly.
And I'm leaving all the other junk. There's going to be a lot of junk we get in this lifetime. There's going to be a lot of people telling you to believe in some pie in the sky idea that just so happens to work by default. But it's not going to work by default for 65% of the people. No, I'm not willing to take those chances. I want those solid things that work 100% of the time, every single time I apply them. And them are the things I look for.
Yeah, and from what I find is I've studied many different spiritual teachers, and it seems like they have the same core message. And when the Buddha first laid out his original teaching, I mean, it evolved and it changed with different cultures and different interpretations. But I feel like the basics are the same. It's sort of, you can get it down to very practical advice if you want. So. Yeah.
Right, and that includes a lot of religions, most religions. You can learn something from most religions. And even yoga. How can yoga hurt me? It can't really hurt me as long as I don't take it into some uncomfortable part of life where I'm trying to proselytize, people that may not want to do yoga. If I'm getting something, fine. Buddha's great. All these things are great, but distilling it and taking what I want, some health benefits. I'm getting some health benefits out of life from just.
And I saw some articles that were listing the benefits of meditation. There's so many benefits. It's like I was going to make a video, but there were too many benefits. I thought, so I can't sum these up.
I think the studies that have been done in the past 10 to 15 years, and this is a rough number, is there's been over 800 studies done on meditation. There are current studies going on. Okay, they're actually neuroscientists are actually plugging in, putting the probes in, but it's been over 800 studies, and fewer of them, I mean, nothing was found that was derogatory in terms of, what's good for you, so to speak, in simple terms. So, there's a lot of benefit. And like I said, I've had some experience in 12 years. I had a regular practice, right? And I've gravitated to the Zen training myself. So it's out there. And guys have to find out what their path is, if they so choose. But will it take them to the next level? Absolutely. Absolutely. You have a regular meditating practice, okay? Your day might be just 10%, not very much, but 10% better from sustaining a regular practice, okay? And, and it's something, it's something, again, that you can't really put into words, but it does, I can guarantee that it does make it.
Yeah, because a lot of the benefits I find is, or some teachers said that, is you lose a lot of, bad stuff. It sort of goes away, like stress and all that. and you don't notice what's gone away. So sometimes it's hard to notice the benefit because,
I mean,
like,
one great way, and this is just that's a good point. One great way, everybody thinks, oh my goodness, I have to sit in the proper way, and I have to do this and that. It's lose that. Sometimes just taking a drive out in the country, okay, and finding a quiet space where there's no people around. You don't hear any electricity, in the hydro poles. You don't hear any cars, and just take a time just to be there in nature, be in silence. I mean, that's something that's readily accessible. If you could do that every now and again and build on that, that's a good way to get you on the way.
Yeah, is that your self-examination periods?
Right.
Do you do that? Do you always do a self-examination, or do you always just kind of let it go and just kind of get in touch with yourself and how your body feels? And I know most men don't do this. We get this in the mind, body, soul kind of program, that just step back on your life, go somewhere quiet, and see how you feel. Because that's the only place you're going to be able to see how you feel. That way there's some problems I need to address. If I'm feeling stress, okay, I can address those problems in the future days. If I'm feeling a pain somewhere, I can address that. Sometimes I often give the example, your body's screaming for certain things. Unless you can see what your body's screaming for, and that could be emotional, do I need to associate with more people? Do I need to talk more? Do I need to get in a group or something like that? The only time you're going to see that is when you're just by yourself and you're looking deep within you. Sometimes all you need in life is a glass of water.
Exactly. There are times I go on retreat, and it takes me, like, if I'm there for 3 days, it'll take me the first day and a half to get myself centered. Because of, I'm running a business, so I have to let that, I can't be thinking about, am I going to make my quota and all those things associated. If I'm pissed off at a certain guy or whatever, it takes time for, to train to get my mind to that level. Now, when I was in full training, it was, when I had a regular training schedule, okay, it was much within minutes, okay, I could go into an empty mind scenario, okay. But again, Joe, it's training. It's important for guys to train these things. Right? It's not something that you can readily talk about. We can talk about meditation and different things until kingdom come, but it's the difference between an orthodoxy and an orthopraxy. Okay, sorry for the $50 words. An orthopraxy is something that is done. You go into action. The irony, though, is if you get into those disciplined meditations, for instance, Zen, where you have to have a posture, and all those things. But there's a purpose for that, and that's just like an antenna to lead you so that you can, you can become receptive, right? Again, it's training, and whichever way guys want to do it. Some guys can go and hop on a cycle and do those road trips, right? And the cadence and the breathing. Okay, after you filtered everything else out, that becomes a meditation too as well. So again, it comes back to the individual.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to wrap this up on time today. Okay, John, you did.
Well, I think to some degree what you're talking about, when you use words like meditation or anything like that, I think what you're talking about is an altered state of consciousness.
It can go there. It depends on which techniques. I mean, there are certain techniques in the Indian traditions that induce an altered state, okay? Again, that's up to the individual. My take and my practice is about allowing the meditation to happen by itself. All I have to do is sit down, shut up, and sit up straight and get my mind out of the way. Okay, so mine is not a meditation; it's more of a concentration, like, naturally occurring concentration.
Connecting with your natural state instead of trying to induce some altered state. It's basically the difference usually.
Well, in some cases, your natural state can be an altered state, especially if you're fixating on something, or if you're under a lot of stress. Right. Or if you're, sort of in the process of validating the illusion of your fixation, leaving that is an altered state because it's different than what you're experiencing.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what you define as the natural state, but if you do these types of meditation, just allow everything to be as it is, and watch your thoughts without going into your thoughts. There's a silence there, a sort of a presence, and it's not so much focused on thoughts or external things arising in the mind, but more like just the silence, the watching is there.
You know, I think Siddhartha Gautama said it best, the Buddha himself, you know. He said, you know, before he died, he says, listen, whatever I've taught you here, don't take my word for it. Find out for yourself. I mean, that's the showstopper right there. That says everything.
Absolutely.
To me. Yeah. Even the Buddha himself, don't take anything. Find out for yourself, man.
Okay.
Go your own way.
And that's what you want to talk about a guy that went his own way. Yeah, Siddhartha Gautama is the epitome of going your own way at 2500 BC, right? You know, here he was, you know, he had all the pussy he wanted, and, you know, in the harems, you know, his father prevented, his father didn't want him, you know, to see what misery and what the real world was all about. He gets the 3 signs when he stepped out of the castle wall, so to speak, and that's where he got the first signs that led him on this path. You know, he tried different things, and you know, before he came to the middle way, you know, which is so reminiscent. It's so Mgtow. Okay, you know, you find the 2 extremes and you stick to the truth and you follow that path, and then he, you know, and that's how he came up with the Anapanasati, which is the breathing meditation, and the observation meditation, which leads into Vipassana. These are technical terms. Sorry, guys. You know. But it's you know, it's the underlying principle here is this very Mgtow, what he did. Okay, and it's not just Siddhartha Gautama. There's Bodhidharma, the founder of Zen, 500 AD. Okay, how he went across China, or sorry, from India to China, and you know, and that's how the Shaolin Temple and Kung Fu came about, right? You know, and he spent 9 years in you know, developing. That's how he developed Zen. Okay, and Zen is really the translation of a Chinese word translated from an Indian word, which means meditation. You know. So
yeah, it's what I find, you know, in Mgtow, what we study, you know, the red pill and all, it pertains to the truth about relationships and perhaps the idea of romantic love. But I think Buddhism, it's sort of a bigger red pill into the nature of reality, or what you want to call it. It's sort of like using the observational method and trying to see things as they are. And it's a type of bigger red pill, I find.
Oh, it's yeah, and it is. It's because, and you can say that because you are practicing. You have a practice, you know, within those things. And guys, you know, this is an opportunity for guys listening in. Hey, it's out there for you. I've said this enough times, but we're now. I just got a message from Joe here that we are coming to the end here of our talk here on Sunday, our throwdown. So yeah, Joe, if I could just mention that, you know, did we perhaps you know, do a roll here and end this?
Yeah, it's been a great talk today. I think if any Mgtow out there would listen to this and listen to the full where we started off to where we ended at, he can get a real good sense of what he wants to be in life and what he wants to be as a Mgtow. And it covers a whole vast variety of the questions, so I wanted to keep it palatable at 2 hours. And
yeah.
And I would like to just say it was a great talk we had today, guys, and I wanted to thank everybody for that. And then we can kind of end it with a summation.
Yeah.
Who wants to start it?
You guys go ahead.
To learn to treat yourself well, and love yourself, and learn to give yourself the validation or what you need. And if you have a hard time loving yourself or doing that, you can get a pet, because that's a great way to practice, you know, learning about unconditional love is to get a pet. It's Ajahn Brahm's advice also. But, yeah, it's yeah. So that's my advice. It's you need to love yourself to get out of the disposability thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
John, do you have any last thoughts there, man?
Well, I guess my last thoughts will end on a spiritual note.
Yeah.
Which is simply, give yourself the freedom to occupy the territory within inside yourself.
Nice.
Yeah.
Be free
Be
within.
Free.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. I'm just looking at the chat room here, guys. I think the guys are now really asking the questions, and this is something that we discuss. If I can just, sorry, John, did you have anything else to add? Sorry to jump in there.
I guess the only thing I'd add is to the commenters.
Yeah.
Don't let go of your questions.
That's it. Keep questioning, and that's talk about meditation. That's part of it. Keep questioning until kingdom come. What was I going to say? Yeah. I mean, we talked about this earlier on in the week. For anybody in the chat room here, that we might, I might even introduce a second part to this on a Sundays. You know, as it gets colder, you know, and we're jumping into late fall and early winter here. So once it starts snowing, if we have something of interest, you know, that we've discussed in our first part here, you know, I wouldn't mind, and of course it depends if I don't have any work, but I can open up a session, another live session if anybody is interested. So just send in any comments to this podcast if any of you guys are interested doing a second part, and it's going to be more of a free-for-all, and we might actually let women in that one, you know, so we can but it'll be almost like a Jerry Springer show, and there's going to be, you know, there's going to be some hardcore monitoring and moderation, and we'll be gonging people and all this.
Right, yeah.
So you mean the emotional WWF?
Yeah, like a WWF, you know, with this, and oh yeah, we'll be, you know, kind of like what happened last week. This is kind of like an offshoot of what happened last Sunday. So, you know, guys, if you heard this, put it in the comments below. Tell me what you think about doing a second part, you know, to the Sunday Throwdown. But as we've established, pretty much what we've done here. Okay, what we've been doing here since March is pretty much, it's a only male safe space. And again, I just wanted to thank everybody on the panel and everybody in the chat room. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. You know, Mgtow's never going to be easy. We have a lot of things we need to work through when we come in here. But the longer you stay around and the longer you listen, and sometimes you're going to have you're going to be questioned, and you're going to be it's going to rub against your old blue pill ways. Don't let that chase you away. Stick around and listen. I think this was a great example of it. I think I feel much better today about how I felt from last week's to now and through the week, and I feel like I've got some real things to work on myself this week. And thanks a lot, everybody, for involving yourselves. And in the past, for the dissenters, if we get some around, we are going to open up. We are going to open up a secondary window, and we'll start doing those things where we can have the real throwdowns. But this first one, I think it's about peace, serenity, finding ourselves, having that male space, being safe in life, maybe for the first time in your life. And I would like to just thank everybody. Thanks a lot, guys, for being around. And with that, I'm going to close it out.
Thanks.